Hello, everybody, and welcome to Lunch and Learn. Can you guess where I am today? We are broadcasting from the centre itself. I'm in Shul this morning, and what a lovely sight to see, hey? For those of you who haven't seen it for quite some time. Okay, so welcome to everybody who's joining us live on Zoom. And if you're not joining us live on Zoom, come and join us live on Zoom. We're going to start with a bit about the parsha. We have got Parshat Terumah. And, the next few weeks, they get quite difficult to talk about. We're going to be dealing with the Mishkan. We're going to have the first couple of weeks, Terumah and Tetzaveh, talking about the different components to the Mishkan and what was needed to build the Mishkan, as well as the priestly garments of the Kohanim and the Kohen Gadol. And then we have another 2 weeks where we basically repeat that whole process with the actual construction of the Mishkan. So it's always, there's loads to talk about. It's just not as riveting, perhaps, as some of the exciting stories that we've had in recent weeks. So Parashat Terumah deals with all of the parts of the Mishkan. So there's the ark that gets talked about. There's the different boards and pillars and the interlocking links of the walls of the Mishkan and the drapes and the curtains and the materials that were used to cover the Mishkan. So there's a lot going on. There's the different altars. There's the sacrificial altar, the Mizbeach. There's the table that had the showbreads. That all gets talked about. Have a look. Take a look through the parasha, and you can see what's going on in there. Perhaps one small idea from Parashat Terumah is we read about the construction, or at least the design, of the golden ark, which contained the tablets of stone. And we're told the dimensions, very specific dimensions of the ark, and we're told that it had to be coated on the outside with gold, and it had to be coated on the inside with gold. And in the middle, there would be a layer of wood. So it's basically 3 boxes, one inside of each other. The inner and the outer layers were made out of gold, and the middle central layer was made out of wood. Now, that's a little bit strange, because what that means is you never see the wood, because you would only ever see the inner surface, which was gold, the outer surface, which was gold, and then you've got the inner surface, the inner layer, which is made out of wood, but you never actually see it. So one of the beautiful answers for this is that while gold represents the royalty and the majesty of Hashem, gold can never grow. Once you've done what you've done and crafted it can't be changed. That's it. That's how gold stays. Whereas wood represents the living force of nature, represents trees. Well, it comes from trees, and trees grow. Trees are full of life. They are living things. And so whatever's going on externally with us, we always want that to look amazing and look beautiful and give off the best image that we possibly can. We also need to have an inner core, which is beautiful, which is growing, which is living, which is striving, which is always trying to be the best that it can be. So we have to be beautiful inside and out. We have to be consistent as well on the inside and out. Not just beautiful on the outside, but beautiful on the inside as well. Just like all of the people on Zoom are. So there we go. A little thing on Parashat Terumah. And we'll do a little bit now on Pirkei Avot. Let's see, guys, if we really can get through to Mishnah out today. Let's do it. Do you reckon we can do it, guys?
Yes.
An underwhelming response.
We don't. It means we're studying 1 in 4.
That's true. We can't fault you there, Martin, can we? Okay, so we're in the middle on the screen here of Mishnah 11, and inside our books we are on Mishnah 14 probably. Mishnah 14. So we are going to have a nice volunteer, or it doesn't have to be a nice volunteer, but just any volunteer, who's going to take us through from in the middle here, Rabbi Yochanan Hassandlar.
Rabbi Yochanan Hassandlar said, "Every assembly which is for the sake of heaven
will in the end endure, and every assembly which is not for the sake of heaven will not endure in the end.
Thank you very much, Joy. 'Tis your month of joy. Misha nichnas adar, marvin b'simcha. So what do we think, guys? Any assembly. So the word, you may notice a relation if you're looking in the Hebrew between the Hebrew word knessia, kol knessia, shehi l'shem shemaim, any gathering, any assembly, and the Hebrew word for shul, which is Beit HaKnesset, because the Beit HaKnesset is a house of assembly. It's where the community assembles together. So kol knessia, shehi l'shem shemaim, any assembly that is for the sake of heaven, sof hiskayem, in the end it will endure. V'she'ena l'shem shemaim, and if it is not for the sake of heaven, ein sof hiskayem, then it will not endure. What do people have to say? I notice we don't have Peter today. Rita, is he all right? You're muted, but let me help you out there. Is that helping you? There we go.
I'm okay. Yeah, he's just been to the dentist and he feels a bit groggy, so he's just in. It might come in, I don't know.
No problem. All right. Well, we'll have to make do without him. So, anyone want to comment on the words of Rabbi Yochanan HaSandlar? The word sandler, by the way, he was either known as Rabbi Yochanan HaSandlar because he was a shoemaker. Sandal is the Hebrew word for shoe. So either he was a shoemaker, or it may be that it's named after his native city, which was Alexandria in Egypt. So that's where his name comes from. Anyone got anything to say about our Mishnah? And before you ask, Rita, he was a disciple of Rabbi Akiva, so he's around that time as well, at the end of the Second Temple.
It's pretty straightforward, I think. It depends what you translate as for the sake of heaven to mean. But
Well, it also depends on what you translate as an assembly.
Well, yeah, I suppose. But, assembly is more than two people, isn't it?
Okay.
And if it's done for good purposes, I mean, for the sake of heaven just means, to my mind, if it's for good, if it's not just for gossip, or if it's for making a good decision, helping people, or doing something worthwhile, then it'll endure. It'll come to the fruition in the end. But if it's not for the sake of heaven, in other words, if it's not nice, if it's not good news, if it's not worthwhile, then it won't endure. If it's just wicked, if it's evil, then it won't endure. That's how I see it.
Okay. Thank you, Martin.
I'm wondering about in the end. I don't think it means just, eventually. I think it's talking about the end of time, or towards when the time when Mashiach comes. I think it's got more meaning than just eventually.
Lovely. So what would the assemblies be then? I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just challenging you, putting you on the spot.
I mean, apart from just, as Martin said, just people gathering together, I don't know.
Not easy. It's not easy. Joe?
Well, when was the first assembly? Was it when they got the Torah on Mount Sinai?
Good question.
When was the first assembly? When it was called an assembly? What's an assembly?
That is a good question. When is the first time that we see that word of, I don't know. Oh, what a question.
When we first...
Joe is alluding to a very important concept in Torah thought and in Torah study, which is any time you have a Hebrew word which is used for the first time in the Torah, within that episode or within that paragraph lies within everything that we need to know about the term. So where is the first time that we have Knessia? Well, I don't know that we have Knessia, but we have Knesset, or lehikanes in Hebrew is to enter. I wouldn't know. I probably could try and look that up. Anyone got anything else to say while I quickly try and look up where the first time it appears is? Don't all rush at once.
The word assembly is probably congregation.
Mm-hmm.
The people come together to pray. That's probably assembly. Is that what they're talking about?
No, assembly. When we received the Torah, when we received, there was an assembly of people. They weren't there to pray; they were there to receive the Torah. It's by definition, an assembly is any group more than two people. They assemble. They get together.
Yes, and that was for
I mean,
the
I don't know what in Torah law the word means, but that is what I look at an assembly.
yeah, that was for the sake of heaven. The first time they received.
Yes, that is true, but it doesn't use that word. You were asking about that word. I don't know where that word first appears. I'm not sure if it's used in that context. I don't know. But yeah, I mean the first time the Jewish people are together is Vayichan Sham, when they were camping by the foot of Mount Sinai, and they were united as one. That was definitely L'Shem Shamayim, when they were all united as one nation, one heart, standing at the foot of Mount Sinai. It just doesn't use that word doesn't use the word of knesing. But yeah, so that was the first assembly, but not necessarily the first Knessia as it's written in the Torah. So stuck on that one. Good question. We can look it up. Lots going on there. So let's try and reveal some of our nuggets that's coming out of this. I mean, I am a bit on Martin's side that it is quite straightforward in the sense that there is we want our assemblies to be L'Shem Shamayim. We want to be gathering together for good purposes, not for bad purposes. The word Knessia, actually, one of the interpretations of this is that it has the word, it has the letters Yud and Hey at the end of it there. So it's a gathering for the sake of Hashem. So it's a godly gathering. So conventions and conferences and gatherings and get-togethers, these things should all be with positive goals in mind. We shouldn't be getting together to gossip and to speak Lashon Hara and to put people down and all that kind of thing. We want our gatherings to be positive and fruitful and happy and beneficial to people. So that's certainly one layer that comes out of all of this. This concept of enduring, it is a bit of a tricky one, and some of the things that I have seen in relation to this trace back to a concept that we've talked about in the past, which is that the phrase Devarim hayotzim min halev nichnasim min halev, things which we are passionate about when we are trying to share with others, they have the ability to penetrate and to permeate into people's minds and memories and psyche. And so things which are good, things which are for the sake of Hashem, they are able to endure and to be sustained. They will be remembered. Amazingly powerful moments of togetherness, of inspiration, they are ultimately to be remembered. They will penetrate and will be fondly remembered for a long time. So our moments of inspiration, our moments of, think about how people fondly remember events like Shabbat UK, or particularly good Rosh Hashanah, or particularly good Yom Kippur, where you felt the power of everyone coming together, and you felt the positivity, and you felt the atmosphere, and it was electric. So Sof Hiskayem, these things endure, these things remain in our minds and our memories for many years to come, and they can sometimes be a constant source of inspiration. The only problem that I have with that is that it says Kol Knessia Shehi L'Shem Shamayim, only things that are for the sake of heaven will endure. The only problem with my interpretation just then is there will be people who will turn around to me and say, well, I can still remember this amazing concert that I went to in 19 whatever, or and the atmosphere there, I'll never forget that. So that does kind of put a bit of a spanner into the works there.
Why? Because that could have been whoever produced it and put it on did it for good.
Okay.
To give joy and love and affection to people.
Okay.
So it was for the sake of my view of anything that you do that's good is for the sake of heaven.
Okay, so I take that on board then. In which case you support the you support the sentiment. So that's good. And other things that stay with us, other gatherings, l'shem shamayim, weddings and brisses and bar mitzvahs and all of these and Seder night. You know, these memorable occasions when people come together with, as Martin was saying, with good goals in mind, wanting to put on a good show for the sake of others, for the sake of preserving the heritage, the tradition, the values. All of these things endure. People remember these things for a long, long time. So they're very important. And then for she'ena l'shem shamayim, the things that are not for the sake of heaven, they do not endure. So one interpretation of this is that if a person is in a relationship, not in a any kind of relationship, friendship, marriage, business, commerce, whatever it might be, but if one side is in it to manipulate the other, wanting to triumph the other, wanting to push the other down because it makes them feel better about themselves, these relationships do not endure. These things are not sustainable. They are not l'shem shamayim. They're there to serve one side only. And so these are not things that can endure the test of time. You can't, as the Meiri says, you can't build yourself up by pushing others down. So it behooves us to create situations and circumstances where we are trying to bring everybody up, because those moments are sustainable, they endure, they are remembered, and they can inspire us for a long time to come. Anyone got any comments or questions?
Can I nitpick?
Please.
Because I think we're taught that when we read, all the words have a meaning and are important in the sentence.
Yeah.
And you see, all the things we've discussed, I completely agree with, but you could leave out, so it could say, which is for the sake of heaven, will endure, okay? And which is not for the sake of heaven, will not endure. And leave out in the end. And I'm kind of curious about that in the end business.
So am I.
Adds something to it, doesn't it? It's.
I'm also intrigued by that, and the problem that I had was that there wasn't a huge amount that I was seeing specifically on those words, and the general drive of the material that I was exploring was very much along the lines of people remembering, absorbing, being inspired by, but I agree with you that Sofa Lehit Kayem, that in the end, perhaps it could be alluding to the end of days. I just don't know how to package that into a nugget that I can convey. So Joy, over to you. But I agree, the words are, soft. There could be many more layers of depth to that word, to soft, and I don't have. Are you seeing this as I'm fiddling around over here? Yeah, so I'm just having the amazing thing about this website is it shows you other commentaries on the side. But let's just see if anyone has anything to say about.
Rabbi, according to my Hebrew, Lehit Kayem
Yeah.
To be here, isn't it? It's not the end. What was the Hebrew word?
Lehit Kayem means to sustain, to endure. We had at the very beginning of Pirkei Avot that the world endures and stands on three things.
Where does the word end comes into Hebrew? I can't see it.
Sofa, lihit kayem, at the end.
Yeah, sof is the end, yeah.
Yeah.
It's okay.
We're not replete with interpretations on that specific word. So I'm sorry that I can't be more inspiring and
Well, it won't sustain itself in the next world. It will disappear. Whereas a good thing will.
yeah, that could be a part of everything that we're talking about. So there we go. Sorry about that, Joy. You have to get yourself a proper rabbi. Let's have a look then, guys, on the screen here at Mishnah 12, and in the books on Mishnah 15. Let's do another. Let's spoil ourselves. Who is going to read for us the words of Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua? Don't rush at once. Okay, I'll do it. Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua Omer. Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua says, Yehi chavod talmidecha chaviv alecha keshelcha. Let the honor of your student be as dear to you and as precious to you as your own. And uchvod chavercha kamora rabacha. And the honor of your colleague, your friend, be like the mora rabcha, the reverence for your teacher. Umora rabacha kamora shamayim, and the reverence for your teacher as the reverence of heaven. So let the honor of your student be as dear to you as your own. The honor of your friend be like the way you have reverence for your teacher, and the way that you have reverence for your teacher be like the way you have reverence for heaven. Comments and questions, initial feedback. What have we got to say? There are people on, I promise.
Yeah, what I make out of it, treat your student, I mean, you're the teacher, and treat your student like it was you.
Mm-hmm. So you are a teacher, Rita. Talk us through.
No, I don't know. I'm a teacher, so yeah.
You are a teacher. You are a teacher.
Yeah, I've been a teacher for 40 odd years. Right. Let the honor of your student be as dear to you as your own. So basically, just treat the student like it was you.
Mm-hmm.
Treat your colleague like it was you. Right. Treat your colleague like it was you, for you, the teacher, and the reverence of your teacher is the reverence of heaven. That bit I don't understand.
So let's just explore the honor of your student then. So let the honor of your student be as dear to you as your own. How's that going to impact on the way you run a class?
Well, the first thing I used to do, I never used to wear jeans.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing I used to do, and I used to be very, very, very strict. But that is because I knew from the beginning, if you don't put your foot down, that's it. So that was my...
Were you primary or secondary?
Primary.
You're primary?
The whole primary, from age of 5 to 11.
Which school were you teaching in?
It was in Chingford, in Essex.
In Essex.
I was head of French.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but anyway...
Sorry, we sidetracked.
Treat all children like your own, basically.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so you're saying as your own children?
Well, as your own, as you would do, if it was your own kids, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But that's why it says on there, isn't it? Let the honor of your student be as dear to you as your own. That's interesting. As you're interpreting the shelcha as your own children. I had gone down a different route, that the way that you would want to be honored and treated respectfully, that's how you should treat your students, with honor and with respect. So I hadn't. Let the honor of your student be as dear to you as your own.
As your own honor. That's how I'd interpreted it.
Oh. I don't know.
But that's because when you see the word student, in your brain you see the word children because you taught children.
Well,
Perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah.
Perhaps. But if you are an adult in university, you could still be a student.
That's right.
So a university professor might look at this and see, treating a student of all ages with the same honor as you would treat yourself or want yourself to be treated by others. But either way, it's a very important point. At the heart of everything, the teacher has to realize the position that they are in. And this is something that we've talked about before, but you have the ability to make or break a child or an adult with the way that you treat them in the classroom or whatever teaching setting it might be. A teacher can determine a student's course in life just by the wrong comment. It could, saying the wrong thing or being too harsh or too unfair, that could set a student off on a path and a trajectory that is leads them to very dark places. So teachers really have to be very careful. And what we're saying over here is that it should be as precious to us. It should be as important to us, and taken into consideration the honor and the way we treat our students. It should be as important to us as our own honor, the way that we are treated and the way that we want to feel. It has to be very, very precious to us. There's another side to this, which is that this is something that Shira and I often talk about, or Shira often says to me, which is that you have to give a bit to your students. If you show them that you trust them, then they will reciprocate. People, if they feel micromanaged and oppressed, then very often that can cause people to act out. But if the teacher finds the right balance of figuring out how to empower their students and how to help them to stand on their own 2 feet, then they will reciprocate in kind, and they will be able to show just how brightly they can shine. But it's about finding that balance, and it's about realizing that you have to give them space and give them honor and give them respect, and not just try and squash them down and press them down. So there's a lot of that kind of message that comes out of this Mishnah. Ultimately, leadership, and a teacher is a leader. Leadership is about creating leaders, as Rabbi Sachs often said, not just about feeding people information. It's about empowering people and building them. That's what chinuch, the Hebrew word for chinuch, that's what the word is about. Rita, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say something from my own experience. When a child wasn't good at the language,
Yeah.
I was teaching, I used to say to the parents, please do not worry. Probably not as good we'll get there, I said, he's not good in languages, but he's definitely he's good at other things. Please don't worry. Which gave the parents a lot of confidence, isn't it? Because everybody can be good at languages or maths or English or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But parents were always happy when I used to say, well, don't worry about all that. We're going to get there somehow. And I said, he's probably good at a lot of other things. That's what I used to say.
Well, I'm sure that was very reassuring.
Very reassuring.
Yeah. That's the type of thing. Yeah. That's the type of thing that we need to have teachers say.
Well, yeah, you need to give them, the parents, encouragement.
Yeah, encouragement, the positive feedback, finding the good in people. It's we don't have that universally, do we? That people always look for the good and try and build people. It's not always the case. There is.
Rabbi, excuse me to interrupt you, but are these students here, are they talking about people who are studying Torah, or they're talking in none of your students?
I think it's all students. I think it's any kind of student, any kind of relationship where you're having an influence on other people. You have to realize just how influential you can be. One of the interesting things about the importance of teachers, by the way, it even stretches to halakha. There are sources in the Talmud that talk about if you are in a situation where you have a choice of saving the life of a parent or of a teacher, who do you save? It goes on to say that you save the life of the teacher because it was the parent who brought you into this world, but it's the teacher who is preparing you for the next world. In the sense that we hand over so much responsibility for guidance from teachers that's in many ways what's building us into the people that we're going to be, the contributions that we're going to make, the mitzvot that we're going to do. And I think what it underlines over there is just how important the role of a teacher actually is. We shouldn't for a second forget how important the role of a parent is, and all the rest of it. But whether we actually apply that halacha in practice or not, the point is the power of the teacher is huge. The responsibility of the teacher is huge, and so we have to learn how to treat our students. We have to understand that they are people who are deserving of respect, and a disrespectful teacher is a failure ultimately. There are I'm sure, Rita, you've bumped into people down the line who remember you from years later. My mother-in-law is a teacher in Sinai, and people come up to me the whole time and said, "Oh, I had Morada. Yeah, she was amazing." The teachers get remembered.
Well, it's true because I've done a lot of things. I won't go into it now, but the kids cried when you can ask Peter. The kids cried, and the reason being that I made it interesting. I brought French food in, and I brought different parties, and when they learned the colours, I've made a clown, and I made competitions who were the best clown.
And this was the days before Kahoot and interactive whiteboards.
All the days, you were in school, you were master, but they were young, but they were master, you were the master of the class.
Yeah.
It was very strict, so that helped.
There's another lovely insight here that Rashi says on this Mishnah, which is, as a teacher, since you have a share in your students' accomplishments, you should cherish the prestige. You should enjoy as well seeing them succeed. There should be a lot of nachas there. And as I said, we talk about student and teacher, but ultimately anyone in any sphere of influence. If we understand that we're trying to build people and educate and help them with whatever's coming next, when we see people succeed, it shouldn't make us feel jealous and annoyed. The opposite, we should feel so proud for people when we see them succeed. So that's a big part of this as well. And I'd say that definitely has to extend into so many other areas of influence, not just a teacher-student setting, but friends as well. When we see other people being successful, does it leave us harboring a grudge, or do we feel proud and happy for other people? It's a very important question to ask ourselves as we encounter different situations. Do we feel happy for them or not? That it leads nicely into what we're talking about next.
But I must say, I wouldn't like to be a teacher today.
Well, neither would I.
No, the times have changed now, isn't it? There's respect for the teachers. There's one of my friends just left. Couldn't take it anymore. So that is it. It's the different times. In my days, I used to teach in a private school. The parents paid for it, and the kids wanted to learn. Yeah. But anyway, times have changed.
I had a history teacher at JFS. I'll leave out the name just in case they wouldn't want me to say it. But they'd been at the school for a long time, and I'll just say they rather than whether it was a he or a she. But anyway, so they had mentioned to me that they'd loved their whole career at JFS, but it was time for them to look to retire because times had really changed. And they said that back in the day, they'd done a trip to Bath, and the days before consent forms and all of this kind of stuff. They lost a kid for like a couple of hours. There was another kid who managed to break their arm on the trip. And they said that like if that happened now, they'd be all over Twitter, they'd be fired in an instant, you know, but back in the day it was a very different world. I was even asked to tidy up the stock cupboard once, and there were these two fencing swords in the cupboard, and we were asked to tidy up during the lunch breaks, and my friend and I were tidying up. We found these two swords, and we were playing in the classroom with these two swords during lunch break. And if that happened now, could you only imagine what would happen? But back then, what a different world. So yeah, it really has changed. So let's have a look at this next part.
Can I just say,
Please. Oh, you're not going to like arrest me, are you?
I just find the use of the word honor, should have a few words spoken about it. Honor usually is something conferred upon somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Here we're saying that honor is something that the student, the colleague, the teacher, that they all have. I don't quite. Honor is something conferred on you. If you were writing this again today, you could use lots of words, but would you let the honor of the student?
So are you asking if honor is a feeling, or is it something that you're giving to somebody else? Is that where you're?
Usually it is something that is bestowed upon you.
Mm-hmm.
Here, it's being used in a way that each of these three different definitions are of people who already have it.
Mm-hmm.
They were born with it, they had it somehow. But I'm not sure that honor might mean what we think in this day and age means to when this great rabbi said it.
That's interesting, because the word exists in the Ten Commandments, kibud av v'aim, of giving honor to one's parents, to one's father and mother.
No, exactly so. Don't go further. That's absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
You, as a person, honor somebody.
Yeah.
Here it's being written, unless we're looking at the translation in English again. Here we're using it completely differently to say, let the honor that your student already has be as dear to you as your own honor.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the word should have been kavod rather than honor, respect.
Well, I can think of
talking about have respect for people. I know it's honor.
No, I'm not sure it is respect. I don't think he's talking about respect.
Well, just respecting other people.
So where?
Something here. I see. I've been looking at this, and they talk about honor of student, and the honor of your colleague, but then it's reverence for your teacher, reverence your teacher, the reverence of heaven. So it's kind of going up in sort of honor isn't quite as reverent. It's a different sort of term. So I don't think it's sort of like giving someone an OBE or something. I think it's something that they have or will acquire for themselves, a sort of an honourable behaviour.
I agree with all of that. Not a problem. But that isn't what it says. It's your interpretation.
I don't know what the Hebrew says, because I don't speak Hebrew.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if words in Hebrew mean something slightly.
Well, that's what I'm struggling with as well, because I have to be honest. All this time, the way that I've kind of sensed the just one second, I'll come to you in a second. The way that I've kind of sensed this mission and the direction was, again, I'm looking at it with lenses from 2021, but I guess I'd almost been using the word honor and kind of self-esteem almost interchangeably with this. And so I've been reading it as, let the realization that your students need to have a positive image that has to be as important to you as your own self-image and your own self-esteem. You have to understand how important it is to build people and not to push people down.
Wouldn't this come under a simple heading of do unto others as you would have done unto you? teach your student, how would you like to be treated if you were a student? And that's how you should treat your students.
Yes. I think ultimately it does fall under that macro theme, and this is a micro example of that. Yeah.
Kavod is interpreted as, here they've got it as honor, but it's used as respect as well.
Yeah.
In Hebrew, kavod is respect as well as honor.
Rabbi,
yeah.
Rabbi, could you please explain in plain English again the last bit and the reverence for your teacher as the reverence of him? I really don't understand.
Well, we haven't got there yet, Rita.
Oh.
We haven't got there yet.
No, I got it, but I think you have to look at it following and the building up of honor to reverence. That's the bit I'm curious.
Yes, yeah, there is a difference between the two. The honor, well, I guess as Paul's pointing out, it does mean different things. It's interesting, by the way, Paul, because we have an obligation to honor our parents, even if we may feel that they don't deserve respect or deserve honor. If they treat their children abhorrently, there's still a commandment in the Torah to give them kavod. And perhaps it's a similar thing over here, which is that we as people in power, positions of power or influence, may sometimes feel that people are not deserved of respect or honor, and yet we're being cautioned to remember that actually people are deserved of honor and deserved of respect and deserved of being treated nicely, even if they are not treating you nicely. Joe?
Yeah, well, I'm just going to say before, even from the teacher always also learns from the student. They always teach you something.
Yeah.
I think even King David said, no matter how lonely the person was, you could always learn something from everyone. So you should have respect, because as they are asking questions and other things, it also expands the teacher.
Yeah,
so they give to each other.
There's a Mishnah later on in Pirkei Avot, which goes along the lines of, even if you learn one halakha or one good lesson or one important concept from someone, they become your teacher, and you have to value them as a teacher. So they could be much younger than you. If they've taught you something, or if they've shown you a new way of looking at something, you have to give them that honor, that, you know.
And the word value fits in very nicely rather than honor.
Mm-hmm.
Let the value of your student be as dear to you as your own.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the way you could relate to. I just have a problem with honor. No problem.
That's all right. It's all right. We're unraveling more and more ways of understanding. And
I still say that kavod it's a double-barreled word. It's either honor or respect. If you want to say you have respect for somebody, you use the word kavod. So the fact that they've used it here as honor, it could just as easily have been used as respect.
And they've even spelt it
I'm
wrong.
not sure it's respect.
So kavod is usually I mean, these are all English synonyms for one Hebrew word, and they each reveal part of the essence of what the word is trying to convey. So respect would be just as legitimate as honor, and honor with a U would be perhaps even more appropriate than honor as it appears on the screen without a U. Yeah. There we go. That's why you can't trust Americans. So the next thing, uchvod chavercha kamora rabacha. So Joy was pointing something out over here. We've got, on the one hand, you've got the honor of or respect of your student should be as precious as your own respect, and the honor and respect of your friend should be as important to you, or should influence the way that you treat your friend, kamora rabacha, like the awe and respect and admiration that you have for your teacher or your rabbi. Umora rabacha, and the way that you have your reverence, your awe, your respect and admiration for your teacher should be like kamora shamayim, like the awe that you have of heaven. So It does it. It kind of, it takes, maybe we could say it like this. However you are holding someone in your esteem, always go one level above that, you know? Does that make sense? In other words, we put people on different levels and different pedestals based on what we think of them and based on how important they are in our eyes. And actually what the mission is saying is that, you know, always aim higher than that. Always realize that people are deserved of respect and honor, however you might rank them in your own subjective mind. One of the things that came to my mind when I was looking at this was I'd seen a post on Facebook from a guy that I follow called Hillel Fuld, and he is a techno blogger and entrepreneur in Israel, and he is the brother of Rabbi Ari Fuld, who was murdered a few years ago when he was stabbed trying to chase away an attacker in I can't remember where he was now, but he was a rabbi in my yeshiva, and so it kind of shook our world a little bit when he was murdered. And Hillel Fuld is his brother. Anyway, so he posted last week about how he had called up a restaurant because he just had the most delicious meal and he wanted to call them up and thank them. And the guy picked up the phone and he said that, you know, he was just calling about the food that he received. And he went on to tell him all the amazing things and how delicious it was. And the guy said to him afterwards, he said, I have to be honest, once you started that conversation, I was a bit nervous because I thought you were going to lay into me about how bad it was, because that's usually the phone calls I get. People only really call to complain. No one ever really calls to compliment or to thank us. And that's an eye-opening realization, is that, you know, especially when it comes to things like going to restaurants, the number of times I've been in a restaurant and you see at tables where something hasn't gone right, and they're ripping into these waiters, these waitresses, these managers, and perhaps the reason is because they're sitting there and they're thinking these people are beneath them. I'm here for a service, I'm here for a meal, you've done me wrong, but whatever it might be. And so we feel like these people are not deserved of respect and these people are not deserved of honor. But actually the way that you can make people, certainly in that industry, feel by giving a positive word, by complimenting, by feeding back something good, that can make their day, that can make their year, that can catch them completely off guard because it's so not what they're used to. So if we were to all live in an existence of putting people one level up from where we think they are, then just think how much more positive the world can actually be. People that serve us in shops and we don't give them the time of day. Just think how much better the experience would be for them if we bumped them up a notch. And I'm sure there's countless other examples of this.
Well, even the doctor told me that if they kept waiting long, some people don't stop complaining. And she said, you only get the complaints, no one ever thanks you. Right. Because I told her something and said it was unusual.
And actually, I remember there was a guy that I used to live with who was very ill as a baby, very, very ill. And he I think he invited the nurses to his wedding, the ones who had, been by his bedside as a baby that he doesn't have any recollection of because he was too little, but the people that had helped him along and saved his life, basically, he maintained a connection with them for subsequent years, because so often you'll get treated in a hospital and that will be the end of it, and but to be able to connect with those people again, and to be able to thank them for what they did for you, that's a rarity. Rita, you've got your hand up.
No, because I said my doctor, the fully house doctor in those days, before I got married with Peter, he came to my wedding. And also a sad story, when my father passed away, the doctor, his house doctor, whatever, came to the shiva. So it's part of you, it's part of the families.
Yeah.
So,
And I would say it's just about making more people part of our family, more people part of our circle. If we learn to expand and let more people in and bump everyone up a notch, then it can change the world. It really can. Any comments or questions on that?
I could say something.
Yeah.
Stanley.
Go for it.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Stanley, talking about honour, there's one person here that never fails to give honour to every person he meets. And that's my good friend Martin Moss.
Oh, stop it.
Too right. Here.
It's true. It's absolutely true.
That's nice.
When Martin speaks to somebody, he says thank you beautifully to everybody that helps him.
You're an inspiration to us all, Martin. Look at the camera, Martin. We're talking about you.
We've embarrassed him now.
Oh. And now millions of people on YouTube are going to know that about you as well.
Martin, you should be flattered.
What about when you're in court and you're a little bit frightened? What about when you say your honour?
Ah.
Yes.
Yeah. Got to give
Are you giving him honour? Are you scared to death of him?
Well, it's interesting because this word of morah in the Hebrew there, morah rabcha, morah shamayim, which we translate as awe and reverence. When we talk about yirat Hashem, which is the same root over here, and we often call that fear of God, I guess it's the same point. You can be in awe and in fear, and it's kind of the same sensation. It's a realization that these are people who are in influential and powerful positions. And actually, Yirat Shamayim, we always translate it as fear of God. But there's a level of it which is a bit more approachable, which is awe of God and awe of our teachers, awe of the people that we get inspired and guided by. It's kind of part of the same picture. So you can be afraid, but it could also be a sense of awe that the person is so powerful and so impressive. So even if you're afraid of the judge, you're afraid because of what they can do. If you were meeting them on the street, you wouldn't be so afraid. But it's being in awe of the position that they're in, I guess. There is a little bit of caveat, by the way, which is that I can't remember who it was that said it, but the teacher also has to realize that they have to behave in a way where they deserve that level of awe and inspiration, and that's a hard thing as well. Is that we have to look at people with respect and awe, but the teacher also has to be someone who is behaving in a way where they deserve that. So the expectation falls on us to bump everyone up a notch, but it also it's important for people to realize that they have to be deserved of these accolades and deserved of these extra levels of respect. So it has to work both ways ultimately. So yeah, there we go. Finished early this week, 2 minutes early. Look at that. Let's get the recording off and then we can take more comments and questions in the after party. But for all those watching on YouTube and Facebook, we wish you a wonderful, meaningful day. That's all we've got time for. Take care. Wish you Shabbat Shalom for when it comes, and we'll see you again on Lunch and Learn.